that moment in the parking lot of the high school on my last day of teaching to stay home with my kids brought forth all this abundance into my life. And I thought I was letting go.
I just got
I know.
confused all over.
Right? And welcome back to the Jody and Court podcast. We are recording. Yes, I'm just checking on my computer to make sure I actually hit record because I wasn't actually looking at the button. I was looking at the camera. We are here with the Jody and Court podcast where we get to shoot the shit with people we genuinely think kick ass. And today we are shooting the shit with each other, which I'm so excited. It's kind of nice to just have a conversation with Courtney for you guys. And we are going to do things just a little bit different today than previous podcasts. Courtney and I have both come up with some questions for each other, which I don't know what her questions are for me, and she doesn't know what questions I have for her. And then we had put out to the Facebook, Instagram world to collect some questions from our viewers. So we have some questions from our viewers as well that we will get into after we answer our own personal questions. So yeah, and then we'll tell you at the end of the podcast, we'll give you a little insight as to where we're headed this summer with the podcast. So it's pretty exciting.
I think we should rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first. Like who gets to ask. Okay, the winner gets to ask the first question to the other person. Okay, are you ready?
Is it just like a one round?
Yeah.
Or best of three? Okay.
No, and it'll be rock, paper, scissors, and then show your thing.
Okay, ready?
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors. Oh shit, I did it wrong.
No, well, we both did scissors anyways. I just had my hand not in the camera.
Okay, I guess it's like rock, paper, and then on scissors, show your...
Yeah, sure.
Bleh. Okay, ready? Okay. Rock, paper, scissors. Do you have paper?
I have paper.
Dang it!
Yeah!
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I'm excited. Okay, so my first question for you, Courtney, is if you could go back to any age and teach yourself any skill, what would it be?
Any skill?
Yeah.
Oh, that is a good question. If I could go back to any age and teach myself any skill, I think probably I was a really, really wise kid. So when I turned 13, my mom took me to the doctor for a checkup, and the doctor said, or I think I was 12 and I was about to turn 13, and the doctor said, "Oh, the brain fairy's coming soon." And he said that to my mom, and I was sitting in the room, right? And she's like, "What do you mean?" "Oh, well, the brain fairy comes and takes kids' brains away when they turn 13, and the brain fairy gives the brain back when they're 20. Brain fairy's about to come." And I totally resented him for saying that, but it kind of happened. So I would definitely go back to when I was a teenager, and I think I would teach myself the skill of listening, in the sense of listening versus being defensive. I think I got myself in it. It seemed like everything hard that ever happened as a teenager was because I would not listen. I would just defend myself because I'm very stubborn, still to this day, very stubborn. I've just got that skill now that I can listen and be stubborn at the same time.
Yeah, that totally resonates with me. I would have had a much smoother, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years through that time.
Yeah.
Had I not been so defensive about every little thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely still have that defensive, like, strand in me, but it's a little bit more balanced now. And I think because of that skill of being able to listen and just be open, like an openness to other opinions. Yeah. I love that question.
Good answer.
Thanks.
Good answer.
So is it my turn? Like, we'll just go back and forth?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. My first one is, what is a or the, depending on how big it is, defining moment for you in your life? Right?
Whoa. Okay, that's a really big question. So a defining moment in my life. I probably have lots of them, but the one that first like popped into my head was I did a video, a live video, I think it was, in the parking lot of the high school, the last day I was teaching before I quit to stay home with my kids. And that moment was so big for me because of a whole bunch of reasons. So I was leaving a career that I really loved that took me a long time to choose to leave, despite having a really awful year of teaching and managing. It wasn't the teaching that was awful. It was like the balancing and the managing of all the things. I had a 2 and a 4-year-old at home. I was running and training and racing again and teaching full time and domestic things and being a wife, all the things. I couldn't balance it all. But it still took me a year to make the decision to actually leave. And in that moment, I had no idea what was coming. Like I had no idea what the next 4.5 years was going to bring into my life, which was the confidence that I don't have to be a teacher for my whole life, which I would have never thought possible. If you would have asked me when I was teaching in those first 8 years, if there was any other job that I would like to do, I would have said, no, you're crazy. Like, I'll just do this forever. But in leaving teaching and jumping into being a stay-at-home mom, it just opened up so many doors for me. Like, who knew I could make money doing all kinds of other things? I had no idea. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't stay home with my kids and get bored and start looking into those kinds of things, because that's really what happened.
Yeah.
And then because of that time that I was at home, I had the freedom to start working with you, and I was subbing for you, and then we got connected. And it's like that moment in the parking lot of the high school on my last day of teaching to stay home with my kids brought forth all this abundance into my life. And I thought I was letting go.
I just got
I know,
all over.
right? I thought I was letting go of something, but I was actually welcoming in so many open doors. Like, yeah, that's the one that first popped into my head for sure.
That's brilliant. Love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Okay. Next question. Okay, so I thought I would ask a question. Ryan, helped me brainstorm some questions for you, Courtney.
Now I'm nervous.
That
Ryan's really smart.
And hopefully this is okay timing for me to ask you this question. But in light of the course that we're designing, so just so like everybody who's listening, behind the scenes, for like the last couple years, really, Courtney and I have been designing an online course that we're so stoked about. And so I was like, I want to ask her a question that kind of aligns with what we want to teach people. So my question is, in your life so far, what has had the biggest impact on your body image and ability to have self-love?
Greatest impact on my body image and my ability to have self-love. It's interesting because you can take it so many ways. Like when I hear greatest impact on my body image, it kind of goes back to the podcast that we did with our moms. And my mom said this too, as the messaging that we've heard from the women before us in our family. And there's been a couple of defining moments, but they're not those ones aren't really great, to be honest. They put a lot of stress on my shoulders, and sort of external pressure. There's one, and I hope my mom doesn't mind me saying this. I've never actually told my mom this story, but there was a time in high school. My mom was a teacher there at the time when I was in high school, and she was a decently strict teacher. And I don't know, sent some of my friends to the office. They probably thoroughly deserved it. But they were sort of in the gathering area afterwards and just venting about it. And they didn't know I was kind of just around the corner, but I was close enough that I could hear the conversation, and obviously tuned in because I heard my mom's name, right? And they said something, like they made some comment about her fat ass, and it like crushed my soul that day, because I love my mom, and it crushed me that they were talking about her that way. But I also knew that that was the body type of my family, and I like vowed to myself, that was my grade 12 year, I believe. I vowed to myself that I would never adopt the body shape of my family. Which, to be perfectly honest, in about, I think, like 3 to 4 years, and the 3 to 4 years after that, my body shape did change a lot. It wasn't entirely healthy, the way that it was, not necessarily, like, it mostly mentally wasn't healthy because I wasn't in it for the right reason. So I think that's the answer to the first part. That's like one of the defining moments in my life. But over time, I've been able to switch over to a self-love. I don't really know. That's been a lot more of a journey. That's been a lot of like self-reflection and coming to like some amazing moments for me of self-love come through just total stillness. Or here's a really great example of one. I did a meditation class one time where it was a food meditation, and food has always been a really interesting I've always had a really interesting relationship with food, because it's been like something that's I love, and I'm like so passionate about. I love cooking. I love flavors. I love everywhere I travel. I go to the markets. Like, I could care less about any other attraction. I just want to eat with people and cook with people and try their coffee. But on the flip side, I've had this sort of weird relationship with food where it's like, does it control me or do I control it? Does it control me or do I control it? And it's this back and forthness. And I had this meditation class one time where it was a food meditation. And so the lady guided us through, excuse me, 3 or 4 different types of fruits and like 3 different types of chocolates. And for every, like, we like literally had one of each of those things. So it was like 1 piece of banana, 1 strawberry, 1 blackberry, and it progressed from a light color to a dark color, and then a white chocolate, a milk chocolate, and a dark chocolate piece. And it took us an hour to eat 6 bites of food, because every single bite of food, we would pick it up and we would use every single one of our senses to explore that food and to engage with the food and to energetically connect with the food. Like, we would rub it on our cheeks to feel the texture, and we would take a bite and hold it in our mouth before we would chew it. So it was about like a 5-minute process for each bite. And I felt full after. It was crazy. 6 bites of food and I felt full. Like, I was satisfied. Not full, satisfied. But it was a very defining moment in the sense where I realized that it was this like loving connection. And it was around that time in my life, I think maybe that's why I'm drawn to that story, is it was maybe the start of the shift to moving to seeing my body and having body image from a perspective of loving it instead of changing it. And just being present with who I am and the body that I'm in, and how does that body serve me. And then, yeah, so loving is definitely a journey.
I love that. Is there, I had another question pop up. I hope you don't mind if I just kind of layer this one in. Is there something you do as a daily practice that encourages that building of that loving relationship? Is there something that you kind of incorporate to your everyday?
Yeah, totally. I have lots of like little practices that I do all the time. I find that for myself, big practices fail every time. I can't sustain them. So my like go-to things are like teeny tiny little things that take a minute to 3 minutes time. So oftentimes, because of that meditation, when I remember to, I will sit with my food before I eat it and just kind of observe it. Not long, because it's daunting to try to do that all the time. Or like before I take a sip of coffee or something, I'll smell it and just smell it. That's it. So little things like that. One of the things that I love though, just to take it out of just food and body and just whole person self-love, is every single night I have these like, it's like a tear off page calendar, and it has an inspirational quote on it. So I read the quote and I just sort of write down a memorable thing from that day, or something that's memorable that I did with my daughter that day, as sort of a keepsake type thing. And then on the back side of the page, I write minimum. I usually write more than one, but sometimes it's just one thing that I'm grateful for. And then the piece that is like very self-lovey is I write something that I'm proud of myself for that day, not like in general. It's not like, oh, I'm proud of like my big accomplishment that I've been working on for a year. No, it's like from that day, I'm proud of the fact that I called this person, and I write it down, and then I feel good. And it makes me like, it reminds me that I like, I don't know, it's like a feel good thing. It's like a fist pump, you know?
Totally.
So yeah, I do that. And then I write at the very bottom, like an I am statement. And that's it. So it takes me like, that whole page takes me about 3 minutes. And I do that right before bed every night, so that that's how I end my day, is like a feeling of self-love and gratitude.
I love that practice. It's actually my favorite practice of yours. And it's the one practice that you do that I am inspired to incorporate in my own life, because I don't journal. I've tried all those, I have tried to hold myself to a commitment of journaling every day. And
it's hard.
Blah, blah, blah. And I've just come to be okay with that. That just doesn't serve me. If it served me, I would do it, and it doesn't. So it's just not for me. Lots of people it is really powerful for, and they do it daily. But I find that practice of yours to be so manageable. Like I could do that every night.
Yeah. And it feels like, because it's really neat, because then the year after I'll go through and I make a photo album, but I use those pages and I read through them, and because they're so short, it's like easy to read through, and it's fun to see where you're at in different places. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and our memory sucks. Like as a human being, our memory is terrible. So I find it such a great way to kind of like catalog your life. Like it's like your life is cataloged. It's so,
and just in teeny tiny things too.
Like and that's perfect. It's the teeny tiny things that matter, I think.
It's the pockets
of your day. It's the little pockets. Totally. Yeah. Like thank you
yeah, that was a great question.
Thank you.
All right, next one for you. What is something people seem to misunderstand about you?
Ooh. There are a few things that people misunderstand about me, I think. That might be my projection. This is what I think people misunderstand about me. Lots of people think I have it all together. I remember it was Karen Shu. So not everybody knows who Karen Shu is. She's a mom of kids that we teach or taught and coached. And I remember her before I quit teaching. So Noah was quite young. Noah was maybe in grade six or 7. And she said to me, I just don't know how you do it all, because I had a 2 and a 4-year-old at home. I was working full time. I was training all the time, and I was volunteering and doing all the things. And in my head, I mean, I just said thank you to her. But in my head, I was like, you don't understand that it looks like I'm doing it all, but it's not good. Like I'm not doing it well. I am doing it all, but it is not quality. People don't get to see the impact of like exhaustion, right? Because that happens at home. It's your spouse, it's your kids. Those are the people that get to see the impact of exhaustion. You put on a really good face for everybody else. So I think people think that I always have my shit together.
Yeah.
And it's just not the case. I think people think I'm really, really good at solving all problems and at all strategic board games. Because, or like poker and stuff like that. Like people just assume escape rooms, all those things, because I have a math degree and like I'm good with numbers. People just make all these blanket assumptions that, and so then when I'm in those things, I am so stressed out because I'm like, I feel like
They're
there's all these
relying on me.
expectations. I'm supposed to be like really good at this. And if I'm not, what are they going to think of me? Because I'm not really interested in a lot of card games for that reason. I don't love playing board games for that reason. I did get out of my comfort zone and do an escape room with my husband and some friends from work, which was actually brilliant and really fun and kind of put that like anxiety at ease. It was actually really, really, really fun. And I just kind of let other people do a lot of the problem solving because I was like, I'm just going to like watch everybody and like I'll solve a few problems here and there. But it was really fun to just like, some people get so intense. And so I just watched them. What else is there people misunderstand about me? Those are two big ones for sure. I think people also think, I guess I don't know. My assumption is that people think I'm an extrovert.
Totally. I would like if I
Yeah.
for the longest time assumed that about you too.
Yeah, I think people think I really am an extrovert and I really am not. I have this book on being an introvert. I have a few books and there's like a little quiz that you can take in there. And I scored like a 15 out of 20 for like being an introvert.
Oh, that's interesting. So how do you build that like time alone into, because you do a lot. You
I
definitely
do
have a lot going on. So where do you build that in for yourself?
I do a lot, but it's actually really limited to a small circle of people.
Okay.
There's only a few people that I run with. Most of my running is by myself or with my daughter. Yeah, like maybe once a week I run with somebody and the other 5 times I'm by myself. I do the work with you, but it's just with you.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't do like, I have some friends who do a lot of like big group stuff and I just don't do that. Yeah, it's interesting how other people like people don't actually know what my day-to-day looks like. But because I'm involved in a lot of things, there's this assumption that I am an extrovert. And I actually
Yeah.
would really much rather go hide in my camper for the summer and sit by a fire and read my book all summer.
Yeah.
Like I have to be really cautious to balance it all out because I find when I'm spending too much time around too many people, I'm just like get exhausted and cranky really, really, really fast.
I'm realizing that in myself too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I don't, I could run with people every single morning, but I just choose not to. So there's that. And then there's the like the should language that comes into play sometimes, which I've actually I've gotten really good at quieting that and recognizing it. But
Yeah.
that idea of like, oh, I should be running with like the people that run on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 a.m., right? I should go run with them all those days. And I should go on this backpacking trip. I should just make it work, this backpacking trip, which really doesn't work. And I think in the past I would have forced myself to do it. at the expense of my family, because I felt like I should to be included in the group and like stay in the group. But it actually stresses me out because I'm like, we have a busy week before the backpacking trip. You guys don't know, but I was invited for a backpacking trip next weekend. And, but we're in Drumheller the week before. And then I have a commitment to be in Calgary for a different business kind of meeting on the Monday. So it's like, I would have probably forced it to work in the past, whereas out of like a FOMO perspective, right? And now it's like, no, I'll just let me know when the next one is and maybe that'll work better.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I guess those were about, I guess, 3 things that people misunderstand. I'm sure there's a bazillion other things. We never really know somebody, right? All the ins and outs. Yeah.
I love that.
I don't know.
I was very curious.
That's a really, really good question.
Thanks.
I like that question. I want to like kick it back to you, but I'm not going to. I know, right? I have other ones. Yeah. Okay. So I've got one more. We're doing 3, right? Is that what? Okay. Okay. I have 3 more questions on my list because I like really brainstormed a bunch so that I could like pick and choose the ones I wanted to ask you. Here is one that I think you will be very ready to answer. Oh, it's so hard to pick which question I want to ask you. Okay. What do you wish for the world post-COVID?
Oh, that's so easy.
I know.
I love that question. So easy and yet so complicated, but really not complicated. I wish for awakening. As if I was to say one word, I wish for a new normal. So to leave what normal was in the past and to take this circumstance that Mother Nature gave us as an awakening for what each of us are called to see in each of our own individual lives. So that for me, there's so much that I'm seeing for the very first time or in a different perspective. And I wish that for everybody in a way that they can see that. And although we will turn back to a sense of normalcy, that it will be through a new set of lenses that you enter back into what we've defined as normal, so that we can start to shift normal into a better state of normal. Period.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like, there's this like pull to me for things to be more centered around peace and love and at the same time I have this huge fear that I think, especially because I'm a teacher and it's still in the school system, I have this huge fear that policy and government is going to not allow me to do that when we get back. Do you know what I mean? Like with like I am afraid of the busyness that September is going to be.
Yeah. I think there will be a lot of that where it's going to be in the short term chaotic and hectic and really bizarre. Like it's like when you are when you go to a new place and you've never been there before, you have no concept of what that place looks like, and you actually have to walk it and look around and discover it, and like before you start to build a map or a framework in your mind of what that place actually is. I think that's naturally going to happen. The one thing that I really hope for is that in the midst of that, like outside of that, because I think that's inevitable, and I think we're all going to kind of have to struggle our way through that in some sense of the matter. But I hope that in the midst of that we can all start to see just the macro impact from the micro attention. And what I mean by that is just like when we pay attention to ourselves, like just even literally when you talk about the quantum physics of it, when you change your body physically, spiritually, mentally, however you feel called to do that in the moment, and maybe not change, but tune into your body and start to evolve with what you're being called to evolve to and towards, that internal change energetically ripples out so far, so much further than we are taught in current day education, you know, in common talk, right? In common education and commonplace thinking, that we have so much power to have such positive influence simply by going inward. And so, yeah, I think, and like everybody's called to do something. Like for me, like even right now, you and I are in totally different places. Like you are very much called to like the running and like, and really like more the physical body sensation. And right now I'm really being called to the mental, spiritual side of it all. But that's good. And to not go where you're not called. Go where you are called, because that's where you're going to have the greatest impact on the people around you and even the world. It's amazing. One of my favorite things when I meditate, and this is not something that I learned on my own, this is something that I was like learned from listening to guided meditations, is to just take my awareness and just try to like, just with my eyes closed, just be aware of what's around me. And so it's all through feeling. So you start to sense it. And I find my greatest connection is when I become, first it's like an awareness of the nature around me. And even if like, I mean, right here where I'm at, clearly that's very easy. But even if I'm not around that, you can start to feel the trees. Like even if it's just on a city street, you can feel the trees, or you might feel the flowers in your windowsill or something like that. And then all of a sudden from there, it's like a connection to humanity, like boom, that's just easy. And then it's a compassion, and I'm overwhelmed with compassion. And that energy, putting that out into the world, is going to do so much more than, you know, like me sitting down and writing a manifesto. You know what I mean? Which I'm not going to do, and I don't feel that.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
totally. I do. And it's funny because when things started to open up a bit, at first I was really excited. I was excited to be able to go get a massage again. I was excited to be able to just, you know, travel a little bit more and go a few more places. But literally within like a week of that, of like dentist appointments and whatever, I was like, I'm done. I just want to go back to my home. I just want to go sit in my house again. Because it was so brilliant to be able to just be with my family.
Yeah.
Was brilliant. And so it's definitely something that we, like even this summer, like just really being really intentional with our time.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think like taking the FOMO thing, like it'd be cool if we could start to shift FOMO to fear of missing out on the gifts that you have right in front of you, right? Because when we get so focused on like missing out what everyone else is doing, we're missing out on the most important, most beautiful experiences that are sitting right in front of us. Totally. That a lot of us, not all of us, because there are a lot of people who had to work very, very hard during this time, but a lot of us were really gifted with that opportunity because we were forced into it, but then we got to see that it existed.
Yeah.
And I think that many of us share that experience. And so I hope that we have the courage to give ourselves the permission to just allow that to continue. It doesn't have to go back to rush, and it maybe rush, but with a pause, an intentional pause here and there, because we know what that pause has to offer now. Yeah.
Definitely.
Sweet. That was a great question.
Good,
this is fun. We gotta do this more often.
Okay. Last one.
Okay, I have two left too, and I gotta pick the one that I want. Okay. I'm gonna pick this. This is a really hard question, but it's like a short answer, but it's really hard. Okay. What title would you give to the book that looks back and chronicles our journey together?
Holy crap, Court.
right?
What title would I give to the book that looks back and chronicles like you and me, like
You and I,
Jody and
yeah,
Court's
the two
journey
of us.
together?
Yeah.
Huh. Hmm.
That's
The
hard,
first
eh?
thing, yeah, the first thing that just popped into my head. So this is not necessarily what I would call it. But like these are the words that popped into my head. So I am just gonna put them out there.
Okay, sweet.
Jody and Court taking back the world.
I love it. That really is totally defined us because we have everything that like it's not very out there about all of the stuff that we do behind the scenes, but yeah, it's all like taking back your story, taking back your body, like all of these cool things. I love that.
Yes,
Taking
yeah,
back
I was
the
like,
world.
taking back what? Well, taking back the world. That's the first thing that popped into my head. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Just roll with it.
I'm just gonna
I
roll
love
with it. Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, that's a good question. Now I'm gonna
I know
be
it's
like,
hard.
I'm gonna be brainstorming for our book
Yeah, let
that
me know.
clearly is gonna be written, chronicling our journey together.
Yes,
Clearly.
of course.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Courtney and I have very big dreams. Like huge dreams to have an impact on this world through impacting women, through impacting education. So we really do want to kind of take back the world.
Yeah.
Taking on the world, maybe.
Taking on the world, yeah.
I don't know. I like it. That's a good question. Whew.
Yeah, we start thinking of our chapters, hey?
Yes. Because we need more to do.
Yeah. Maybe not. Let's
board
table
of directors,
that one for later.
Yes, our board of directors would
They won't approve.
They'd refocus us.
Yeah. Oh, good thing
Not
we have those
something
boys.
new again. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, now we have a few questions. So these would be questions that would be for both Courtney and I to kind of answer together. Oh, and it didn't. I got to scroll for it again. It won't take me long. It didn't stay up on my phone. There they are. So these were from my Instagram story. Some questions that were posed to us. The first question is, would your 10-year-old self be proud of you?
I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I try to
I'm trying to think of what I was doing at 10. What grade are you in at 10? 5?
You are in you probably turn grade 10 in grade 4, going into grade 5. So because Ella's 10. So I think about Ella. So think about Ella. Ella's 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my 10-year-old Ella is proud of me. So I probably would have been proud of you.
That's awesome. When I was a little kid, before I didn't know what the Nobel Peace Prize actually really like anything entailed around it, but I had this desire to want to win a Nobel Peace Prize in my life. Like that was like, and not to say that that's something that I'm striving for, but I believe that the path that I've chosen to take is in alignment with the people who would win a Nobel Peace Prize, like which is really cool. So I think I would feel very proud of myself. Yeah.
That's so funny. And that made me think about where I was when I was 10. When I was 10, I was very determined to be a marine biologist. I was infatuated with whales. I still, to this day on my bucket list, like I would do anything to swim with a blue whale, like the big whales. Like there was a Survivor episode where they actually got to go do that.
Oh, sweet.
And I have never experienced so much envy. I was like, that's my dream. I find there's just like something so powerful and peaceful about a really, really large mammal in the ocean. Like I just just want to swim with them, just beside them for a little bit. My life would be complete. So that was like when I was 10, that's what I was totally dead set on. And like the sharks, I want to go down in one of those cages with the sharks and like That's where I was when I was 10. I was not thinking about Nobel Peace Prize. I was thinking about being a marine biologist. So funny. So interesting.
My best friend also wanted to be a marine biologist.
Yeah, like what is it?
Yeah.
There must be something in the grade 5 curriculum. I don't know.
I don't know.
We
I
must
bet
talk
it
about
for you. I
something.
bet it's just that it's like, it's the wonder of it. It's so mysterious and awe striking. Is that the way that you would say that?
Maybe.
Awe provoking.
Maybe.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're right. It probably is. I don't know what it was that like got me on that train of thought, but I was very committed to it for a very long time.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a really great question for, asking yourself, like, am I doing what's really important?
Yeah.
You know?
Like a little check-in.
Yeah, totally.
Little
I like
check-in.
that question.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good one. We often ask the question of like, what would you go back and teach or say or to your younger self? But it's kind of cool to flip that and be like, well, what would your younger self think of you now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
Okay.
There's 2 more. Okay. Who do you want to emulate or be when you grow up?
Jody Peebles.
It's so funny because I was like, your name was the first name that popped into my head was Courtney. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to emulate anybody else because I think I just need to be me.
Yeah. There are definitely people where there are people I definitely want to meet. And people who I really look up to. I do really want to meet Ellen DeGeneres.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. I want to be on her show so badly.
Yeah.
Then but more than that, like she is a person where I guess to a certain degree, I would love to emulate her in the sense that she is, as far as I can tell without knowing her personally, obviously, but like she puts out this energy of just being herself, but it's like she's like a trailblazer. You know what I mean? I love that about her. And I would love to emulate that piece of her, but I really want to meet her and just have coffee and do some cool project with her.
Agreed.
What about you? Is there somebody like that for you?
I don't have anybody like that for me. I think I pull from certain influencers when I need to pull from them.
Yeah.
But there is like the idea of trying to be like Tony Robbins and the idea of trying to be like these other people is actually stressful to me. Like that's like,
I know. I'm like
pressure.
I don't like that feeling. Yeah.
But I guess I strive to have that level of impact on the world in whatever that looks like for me.
Yeah, totally.
Whatever that looks like for us. Because that's what gets me excited. And at first, when we started collaborating and started talking about, being on stage someday and like having a big influence on public education and being these like leaders, it was really stressful for me because in my head, I had images of people like Tony Robbins. And in my head, I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not like that. But now I see that it's not about doing it like they do it, like Brené Brown, right?
Yeah.
Another like influencer that I have a huge amount of respect for. It's about growing the confidence to share your message in whatever way you share your message.
Yeah.
And
totally.
however that is perfect. It's not supposed to be like anybody else. So now I get excited when I think about that because I'm like, I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun. So yeah, that's my answer to that question. I don't really have somebody, but lots of people I draw from. Yeah.
That's a good question too. These are good questions.
Yeah, I know. Okay, one more question.
Okay.
What do you do? This is a great question, by the way, which I know what some of your answers I think might be, which gets me excited. What do you do when you don't feel inspired? Because that happens to all of us. We all sit down and we're supposed to come up with something brilliant, and we're like, I got nothing. Tapped out.
I just read this. So this is a journal that I have, but it's like I'm doing a course. I'm on my last week of it, and it was the most amazing thing. It was called Quantum Health. It's taught by a shaman. And one of the reflection questions actually was kind of that. It was like getting back to your core was the question. I'll just see if I can remember what I said. I just reread it recently, but what was it when I don't feel inspired? When we don't feel inspired?
Yeah. What do you do?
I used to try to force it, and I would get really stressed. I would just like go into stress mode. Now one of the things that I do when I don't feel inspired is I don't work. And I don't try to force it because it's just I find that it takes so much longer. You can still pump something out, but it just takes so much longer.
Yeah.
So sometimes meditating gets me back into that, and not a long meditation. Oftentimes it's just like I don't know, 5-10 minutes just to kind of reset myself. Being outside, sunshine. Oh my gosh, sunshine is like pure freaking magic to me. Yeah, I think those are two big ones. Facebook live video. That always seems to like just like fills my battery right back up. Like these types of things. I was like before this. Hey, I was telling you we're camping. First night's always party nights. I'm exhausted today, but like we start this video and I'm like, oh! So, and I get really, really inspired learning anything new. Like if I'm struggling to produce something or to feel inspired, I'll just like put on a podcast. That's a huge one for me. I love learning new things. Podcasting, that's probably right at the top. Yeah, I think those are like my main ones. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree that I used to force myself to come up with something, and then I'd have to spend just as much time fixing it later.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be what was supposed to come out because it wasn't ready to come out. And I find when I do force myself to produce something, it's like later I have this like epiphany. Oh, no, that's what I was supposed to say instead. And so I think it's so powerful to have that awareness to step back and say, no, I'm just actually not meant to do this work right now. So I do the same. I don't force it. I run. Moving my body is always gets me going. It doesn't have to be anything big either. Like I find like you could just do some jumping jacks, right? There's a reason why people jump on a trampoline before they go out on stage, right?
Yeah.
I heavily rely on podcasts and audiobooks because I spend so much time running. Now it's a little bit different because I'm in the forest a lot more. So I don't have headphones plugged in when I'm in the forest. But in the winter and when I'm doing intervals and stuff on just like the paved path, I do a ton of audiobooks and podcasts. I really rely on those for inspiration and motivation. I get super jacked up. I mean, Courtney can attest to like the voice memos and I'll like text myself when I'm out on a run or something. I have to like
I do that too.
Text myself these like ideas that come to me because that really just gets the mental clarity and the inspiration going for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I do. I used to go on YouTube and watch like like
I
a
used to do
video.
that too.
I used to do that.
Yeah.
I don't do that as often anymore. I'm just realizing that now.
But you know what? That is
But
something too. Like music. I would usually turn
yeah,
on like a pump up song. That sometimes really gets me rocking too. Some music.
I have so much gratitude for my husband because I am somebody who, speaking about my like introverted side, I actually really like silence. And I don't turn to turning music on. Like it's just not what I do. When I was a teenager, I sure did, but not so much anymore. And there are moments where I need to and like I love it when Ryan just like he always will just put music on, and
Yeah.
it's like I feel like I'm projecting this, but I feel like there's lots of times where he's being super intentional about what he's putting on,
Oh, that's so cool.
and it like shifts the energy in the whole house. So the kids will be kind of losing it. It's often when the kids need some energetic help, and
Yeah.
he will just put music on. And it's like he always chooses the perfect song to start with. Like it's always perfect. Whatever he puts out, it's perfect. And that really moves me. More so than if I chose the music. Like I feel like when somebody else puts music on, it has a different impact on me energetically than when I choose the music.
I'm kind of the same. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Music is pretty powerful in the car too. Like I do a lot of thinking in the car.
Yeah.
And often again, podcast audiobooks, but sometimes it's really nice to just listen to music and then just see where your brain goes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that because I was like, okay, whoever was asking the question, I'm like, I wonder if it's like I wake up and I just don't feel inspired to like do the things that I have to do during the day, and it's not like I can put it off. And one thing that I find that helps with that is just breaking it down into like, okay, what am I going to do for the next 3 minutes? You know? And like, okay, I'm just going to get the dishes done or whatever. Like, and that's it. And then I'm not even going to think about what's after that. I'm just going to do that. Because I know that for myself, sometimes I get like highly overwhelmed when there's a big to-do list, and then I don't want to start any of it because it's too much. So then I'm like, okay, I'll just do that, and then cool. I'll just see where my energy is at that point when I'm done that, and then I'll decide what the next thing will be, or if there will be a next thing. But I find that I typically am able to get a lot more done and feel inspired to get a lot more done when it's not the pressure of having to do it all. It's just, you know, a little teeny tiny manageable task. Yeah. Anyways, just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, totally. It's like I think there's two schools of thought on productivity where the thing you don't want to do, you do first. And then sometimes that doesn't work for me though. Like if you're putting something off, and sometimes I find I have to do the things I want to do first. And then that productivity just like creates momentum, and you get excited, you accomplish some things, and then you want to accomplish more. Like once you get going, then you can do all the other things maybe you don't want to do. So I don't know if there's a rule there.
It's like the turning on the tap analogy where when you want hot water, you got to turn on the tap and run the cold through the pipes first. Like I feel it's that like, it's like the freight train, or, you know, starting like, but like you have to do something to start kind of thing. And you got to run the cold out. And then that like the hot is the inspiration, right? But you got to do a few things and like moving your body or music. I think probably we're all talking about things of like, how do we get our cold water out of our taps kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. That's a perfect analogy, Court. Sweet.
Not mine. I wish I could claim it as mine.
I know. Hey,
right?
There's not much we can claim as our own these days.
You and I are like professional, like retellers of information.
Totally. People appreciate it though.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Shall we give some insight as to what our summer's going to look like?
Yeah, a little bit, because we don't fully have like clarity on it entirely ourselves, but yeah, we would really love to start to offer sneak peek tidbits of education, inspiration, empowerment that we have been working so hard at building into the framework of the course that we're creating. But we're just starting to share some of it in a very casual format, such as this podcast, for people to be able to start applying these little tricks that we've learned along the way and that we're like so dedicated to combining into the course, but having them available to start to play with right now, just testing them out in your own lives and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm super excited for us to do a couple little podcasts like that, giving you guys a bit of insight as to what it is we're teaching in the course. For those of you who don't know, we are teaching a course about taking back your body, which is really exciting for us because we're doing a totally different take on it, different spin, where we're focusing on taking back your body through mindset, which is just like, that's our jam. And we're super excited to give you some of those tools now. So you can look forward to that.
Without like having to even like take the course, you know, like it's just to start to be a community of people who are being more mindful and supportive of each other.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can look forward to that coming up in the summer sometime on one of our podcasts.
Summertime, we were thinking about doing a few more podcasts with each other. Offering some of our own ideas, our own content, and setting up some really cool interviews again starting in the fall, maybe a couple throughout the summer, but some really big ideas that we have brewing in the backs of our minds for the fall. Definitely going to do the shame conversation again. I think we definitely have to pull that back out of the closet.
Definitely. So I would ask you guys as listeners to share with us what you want us to talk about too. If you have questions, that was really fun to answer some questions. So let us know what questions you have for us. If there are parts of us that you just want to know more about our life that we haven't shared, send us any kind of question. And then specifically around the shame conversation, I know Courtney and I had discussed kind of doing maybe like a series on shame. So if there are topics around shame that you guys would like us to address, if you have something to share of value around the shame conversation, let us know. Maybe we can have you on as a guest for our podcast for that little series.
Or an anonymous like blurb of something that you can just share with other people too is always super great. I love that.
Sweet. Well, I look forward to all that stuff rolling in.
Yes, me too.
And I'll let you close this out, Court.
So definitely, if you enjoyed today's podcasts, please help us to start to connect to more people. Like Jody and I said, we've got massive dreams of leaving hopefully a massively positive footprint in the world and helping people to come to the realization that they can also do the same by loving themselves deeply. And so if you can, we just humbly ask for your help by clicking share, subscribing, hitting the notification bell thing. I don't know if that does anything at this point, but one day it will. Commenting, engaging with us, that gives us ammunition, that gives us fuel, that gives us direction as well as to where we feel called to keep moving forward. Be in touch with us, and thank you for your help. And as we sign off and you go into the next week of your life, we just encourage you to take those snippets of time, pulling yourself out of the busyness, remembering the stillness, and falling into those pockets of self-love. We'll call it a day.
Beautifully put, Court. Enjoy the rest of your camping.
Thank you.
We will see you guys next time.
See you later. Have a great week.